can't believe I had the balls to say it. I said, thank you very much, but I feel like I bring more to the table. So why don't we work on a case by case basis? And if I bring something to you and we work together, we could do 50-50. So it was sort of like, okay, there isn't going to be a partnership here, and that's what I offered. What was really interesting is for the next 3 months, I kind of still did stuff with him. And his neighbor came in. His neighbor had a helicopter company, and this was right after September 11th, so they got grounded.
Sure.
And I guess he wanted to start investing in commercial real estate. So I was doing agency office work for this guy that was the senior guy, but I had an interest in investment sales. I started to kind of play in that, and I would search the multiples, and I was trying to figure out sales on my own. So he basically paired me with this neighbor of his to go find him an investment property.
Okay.
So I looked for a few weeks with him, and then about a week later, I was always in the office before the senior guy.
Okay.
But that day, I got there at 8:15, not 7:45. And what do you know? The neighbor is sitting in my guy's office. And he's like, Nicole, I'd like to introduce you to my new partner. He made this guy his partner.
In the brokerage business.
In the brokerage business. And he's
Okay.
like, you can help train him. And I'm like, I've seen this movie before. Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Huh? So, I mean, and I don't know, I can't tell you what their split arrangement, but I'm sure it wasn't 90-10.
Well, that's for sure. Weren't you selling this guy a property? Trying to sell this guy a property?
That's what I'm saying. Right. No warning.
Right.
I just walk in one day and that's, bam, he's my partner.
Okay.
So they said, how do you feel about this? And again, I can't believe, when I look back, I can't believe I said it. I go, yeah, this smells like the old boys club. That's what I think.
Hey, welcome again, everybody, to the Zelnik Exchange podcast. I am your host, Cory Zelnik, and today I have Nicole Mihalka joining me, and we're going to talk a lot about LA and Hollywood and all good stuff. I'm going to read Nicole in. I'm excited to get into conversation with her, and let me go. Nicole Mihalka, Senior Vice President at CBRE, specializing in leasing advisory and transaction services in creative office, entertainment, and studio space. Nicole brings a wealth of experience and a proven track record in the Los Angeles market, specializing in leasing and sales of creative office, adaptive reuse, entertainment, and studio space. Nicole joined CBRE from JLL, where she served for 12 years as a managing director. Prior to JLL, she was at Cushman & Wakefield and Dahm Commercial Real Estate. Nicole has consistently led market share in the Hollywood area, where she leased and sold over 5 million square feet in the past 10 years. Her major clients include the leading names in entertainment and music industries. Her extensive industry knowledge and client-centric approach have made her a highly respected leader in the commercial real estate industry in Los Angeles. Nicole prides herself in her proactive creative marketing approach, responsiveness, persistence, and her excellent relationship with the brokerage community. Nicole is also committed to nonprofit efforts in the communities in which she transacts and has worked tirelessly on their behalf. Nicole Mihalka, welcome to the Zelnik Exchange. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you, too. We took a shot at this a couple months ago. We had some technical problems. I'm glad to have you back. And we'll give a quick shout out to Mo Regalado for bringing us together. We read the quick bios. We understand where you're at. You're highly successful in your field, in your industry, in your city. But tell me, where does it start? How do you get to this place? I really want to know from the beginning. This show is all about you, so take us there.
Well, it was totally by accident that I ended up in commercial real estate. So my journey.
Well, I apologize. I laughed and smiled because, one, when I'm asked the question, that's my answer. And I've probably done about 75 podcasts. I would say 50 to 60 of them, that's the same start when it comes to commercial real estate. So I get a kick out of it. That's why I smiled. But please continue.
So my journey was to be a clinical psychologist. I went to the University of Maryland. My major was psychology. I had a Bachelor of Science degree, and I did an honors thesis at the National Institute of Health. I studied the biological basis of behavior in rhesus monkeys.
Okay.
I used to go out to Poolsville, Maryland. Shout out to the Terps and University of Maryland. I know
I,
that's near and dear to your heart,
I
right?
I know. By the way, we should have had that in the bio notes because I think we talked about it the last time we didn't get on air. But us Terps have to stick together.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So if you were, Maryland, I would drive out to, the sticks in
Yeah.
Poolsville to the national as part of my it was a fellowship program that I was in at the NIH. And this is the funny thing. I don't come from a family with business background. My dad was an academic. He worked at a think tank at Rand, political scientist, professor. My mom was a nurse.
Okay.
So I was really never around anybody in the business world growing up. So I had no concept. I sound so foolish to say that not all leaders in their field made a lot of money. Okay. I knew that I wanted to better my situation. I grew up, lower middle class. I had always, I'd wanted to do better. My mom would say, "Oh, we're poor." We weren't really poor, but
Sure.
that got into my head. So I was like, I don't want
Okay.
to be poor. Um, so I thought that if I was at the top of my game in that field, that I'd make a lot of money. So one day at the NIH, I see the guy who's literally quoted in every Psych 101 textbook for these monkey studies,
Okay.
and he drove up in a beat up Toyota Corolla, and I was like, what? And so it dawned on me. It was like a light bulb. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, clearly, if this isn't going to get me, into a better financial situation. I'm not going to be able to build wealth probably doing research at the
Right.
NIH with rhesus monkeys. So I got to figure something else out." But that was like where the seed was planted. After college, I ended up moving back to Boston. That's where I'm from.
Okay.
I moved back for a guy, again, silly, foolish, 23-year-old thing.
All
Quickly
right.
realized that wasn't going to work. And I was sort of like, what do I do next? I had started out younger in California. So between the ages of 1 and 12, I lived in Southern California.
Oh, okay.
When my parents split up, I moved to Massachusetts. So that's what got me back there. But I just really wanted to go back to California. I loved the weather. I liked the more open-mindedness of it all. I liked the opportunity. So basically, instead of after college pursuing a graduate degree in clinical psychology, I sort of went out with my beat up Dodge Shadow, went across the country, moved into an apartment in Hollywood, which I was really drawn to Hollywood.
Okay.
And I had been when I was a little kid. So when I was a little kid in Southern California, my dad would take us to the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the Mann's Chinese Theater where the handprints are.
Sure.
And I would
Sure.
put my handprints in Shirley Temple's handprints. I was
Oh,
always drawn to that
very
particular area.
right.
So that's where I ended up moving. I ended up moving a couple of blocks from the Walk of Fame and didn't have any connections. I ended up getting a couple of, I had some office management experience from like a job I had in college.
Right.
So I applied to an office manager position at this company called Tech Planet. They meet me, true startup, when the .com kind of boom was happening and they didn't know what they were doing. But anyway, they meet me and they say, you shouldn't be the office manager. You should do sales. And I was like, well, I guess I could give that a try. I guess I've heard that before. So
Okay.
I end up doing it, and I become the best salesperson in the office, the highest grossing salesperson in the LA office for Tech Planet.
And what were you selling exactly?
It's gonna sound so goofy. We were selling networking. We were networking the computers together because
Okay.
in 2000, I think that's when it was. When you bought a computer, it wasn't intuitive how the computers network together and then you attach to like the printer. Now you turn it on and you click
Right.
and it's done. You actually had to wire them together and put a little server together.
Right.
So the whole idea was early kind of Geek Squad concept,
Sure.
where we would work with small businesses and people in their homes to network their computers together. Obviously not a very high level service. So I figured out that if I sold every product and had every hour booked with the tech, I'd make like $50,000 a year. So I was like, okay.
But I think that, just listening to, there are so many motivations and different ways that we all find to get motivated. I think that looking at the clinical psychologist's car I think that's fabulous. I think that's a fabulous thing because that's not going to be on a quote of the day anywhere. And I think it's so perfect to have as your own story. But clearly, just moving into this whole network selling, network talking, network communicating situation, I can already feel the salesmanship coming out of you, and so that's great. So please continue on, take me to the next level.
Oh, and by the way,
Yes.
we literally used the phone book. So I would get into this,
No, no.
I don't.
Wait a second. Who do you think you're talking to
No,
here?
I know one. Well,
I'm a yellow pages phone book guy. I still write notes. Come on.
I took that phone book and it was
Right.
so interesting. What I decided to focus on was the PR firms. I called
Okay.
every single PR firm in the phone book in Los Angeles.
All right.
And so that was most of my clients. So I was leaning towards that entertainment industry vibe. I was still living in Hollywood. I was commuting to El Segundo but I was, all my clients were in West Hollywood, in the PR, like on the Sunset Strip. So that was
Right.
sort of my dip into that. When I realized that is sort of that Toyota Corolla moment, I'm like, I'm going to max out here. I'm not going to be able to get to that next level. And I had that realization.
Right.
I jumped ship and got a job that my family appreciated, because it seemed safe. Because again, I don't come from a family that understands going to a commission only non-salary job. I got a job and I was working in the marketing department for com. Had a fabulous time. I actually got I would throw internal events, launch parties. I mean, we were
Okay.
spending money left and right on the internet, the search engine. Search engines back then, we were still trying to compete with Google. So late 90s, it was Yahoo, and there were all these search engines going, okay, we got to compete with Google. And Google was less, obviously. It was just
Right.
one bar and blank page, and we were doing more. We were like
Sure.
extra. And
Sure.
obviously, it didn't, they ended up basically closing down so we all got laid off.
Right.
And
Oh.
I was, 25, I think, at the time. And
Okay.
they gave me a 6-month severance, and I thought I had won the lottery.
All
So,
right.
I'm like, oh, wow, I have all this time to go find another. I'd only worked there 6 months. I get a 6-month severance. Like, I have
Sure.
all this time to go figure out what I want to do. So that's when I took a step back. I said, what do I want to do with my life?
Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a Hollywood agent because that seemed glamorous and fun.
I was gonna throw. I wasn't gonna go there. I was just gonna say, listening to you and the whole Hollywood thing, there was no acting bug or anything like that. I feel like everyone gets that.
I've never had an acting bug. I know my limitations. I've never seen I was in a play in high school. I was
Right.
never,
Okay.
never
Okay.
felt like that was going to be one of my talents. People had suggested it
Okay.
to me, but it didn't. Being on screen, maybe being a director sounded interesting.
All right.
Being behind the camera and writing. So I did end up later taking a screenwriting class at UCLA Extension, and I still fancy myself a pretty good writer. I have not finished and pitched a screenplay, but
Okay.
it's one of those things that I, bring up to this day, and I
Sure.
learned that skill. Anyway, but I knew that I liked sales. I knew that I wanted to do sales, and I knew I was good at it.
Okay.
So I had my resume out on monster.com, and I get contacted by this group called Profit Techniques, and they were in Orange County, which felt far away. But what they were offering was a cold calling boot camp, and a exclusive. Basically, if you come down and you join this program, they do cold calling boot camps, and then you have to work with them exclusively for headhunting, and they'll place you in a sales career. And the
Okay.
names of the companies included like Gateway Computers. That sounded great at the time. Remember Gateway?
Of course. As a matter of fact, not only do I remember Gateway, whenever that was, way back when, we actually did a couple of the New York City stores.
Yeah.
We leased them a couple of their retail storefronts back in the day.
I mean, those were higher end big computer systems that, and everybody had them, and they had really good branding. And
Oh, please.
so I remember hearing Gateway, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like something I'd like to do.
Yep.
And then somebody said commercial real estate. And again, it's that light bulb. And I envisioned myself selling an office tower.
All
And I
right.
thought, I want to do that. And I had an interest in real estate from when I moved with my mom back east. We looked for a house when I was 12 years old, and I would look in the newspaper to help find the house. And so I still had that interest. That was still one of the first things I looked for when I'd look at the newspaper, is the real estate section. I didn't want to sell houses. That wasn't a career path for me.
Right.
But then commercial real estate, it sort of dawned on me, oh, that's a career. I want to do that.
Okay.
And
That's
then
interesting.
the head of Profit Techniques had been a very successful commercial real estate broker in the 80s at Grubb and Ellis.
Okay.
And his old partner, was a manager at Dom.
Oh, okay.
And so he must have worked out a deal that they would place somebody from this group as a junior agent.
That's great.
And that's how I ended up at Dom. I mean, I didn't even interview anywhere else. I meet these kids today, they'll do 20 informational interviews. They major in commercial real estate in college. I didn't do anything of the sort.
Yeah, I get that too, right? When I meet new potential brokers and things like that. So I've gotten used to that aspect of it. And so when we have our conversation and we finish up our conversation, I don't get all crazy about, you got to come here, come here. I said, do me a favor. Go finish up the tour. Go to, I'm a small boutique company. We're seven brokers and two marketing people. People know me. I'm in the business a long time. But I say, go out. Go to CBRE, no disrespect. Go to JLL, go to Newmark. Go take those interviews. And then I tell them, go to this boutique firm, go to that and you go do it. I promote it. And if it's there, and come back to me and we'll talk about something. I don't get into that heavy sell because I know they're walking out anyway and doing it, so go do it. And then I quite frankly, because I've been around so long, I say to them, who have you seen? Do you have any questions about who you've seen? Because I know everybody, to try to help them and see. So I get it. Today it's crazy.
So I end up, so I didn't do any of that.
Right. No, by the way, when I went for a job, I didn't do any of that either. I was happy to get a job.
Just rifle shot into, they made me basically, felt like a cold call the CEO, get a meeting. I get a meeting with the CEO. I get a meeting with the executive vice president of the firm. And I passed those tests. Because what's amazing is they had to pay to place me. And now that I know brokerage and the attrition rate is so extraordinarily high, I'm kind of surprised I even was hired there. Yeah. I was a true runner, as they call it. I ended up getting placed with a broker who had been looking for a junior associate. And I was driving from my little shoebox apartment in Hollywood in my beat up Dodge Shadow all the way out to Woodland Hills, which is about 20 miles away, kind of in the wrong direction. It's sort of out. I was in the city where things were happening, and I was going out to the suburbs, and then I was even traveling 20 miles out further to do leasing in what's called the Conejo Valley.
And they were paying you a salary.
I was happy to learn.
Okay, I'm sorry. They were paying you a salary and covering all of your gas costs, right?
No. They were not. No, they were not. I was getting $1,000. Well, I got something, but it was $1,000 a month. I was starving. I had to literally thank goodness for the people at Dom. What I loved about Dom was it was more of a family, and those guys would take me to lunch every day. I couldn't believe it. They were going out to lunch every day. I thought, wow, these guys they're living in this is a high order of living, And they would buy me lunch, and sometimes those guys I appreciate them. I think about them all the time because there'd be times when I didn't have enough gas money to get home, and I had to borrow $20 just to survive the weekend. So that's $20. I get gas and probably like a meal. I had to go to shop at the 99-cent store for food. So real humble beginnings.
Yeah, no. Look, I think that no matter how you find your way into this business, you go through that. I think about my cereal for dinner days. That's what it was. That's the only way to get going in this thing.
Absolutely. So Here's what ended up happening with that. So the guy that I was working for, he offered me like at the end of by the way, super short runnership too. It was like 6 months.
Okay.
6 months, I'm making 1,000 a month. I'm doing all of the deals for him, and I'm not getting a commission split either.
Interesting.
He offers me a partnership at the end of that, and it was like 90-10. And I knew how much he made, and I'm like, 10% of that's not going to do it for me. Remember,
Right.
I've already been through this.
Sure.
Right? I know where I want to be, and that's not going to work for me. So I said, I can't believe I had the balls to say it. I said, thank you very much, but I feel like I bring more to the table. So why don't we work on a case by case basis? And if I bring something to you and we work together, we could do 50-50. So it was sort of like, okay, there isn't going to be a partnership here, but that's what I offered. What was really interesting is for the next 3 months, I kind of still did stuff with him. And his neighbor came in. His neighbor had a helicopter company, and this was right after September 11th, so they got grounded.
Sure.
And I guess he wanted to start investing in commercial real estate. So I was doing agency office work for this guy that was the senior guy, but I had an interest in investment sales. I started to kind of play in that, and I would like search the multiples, and I was trying to figure out sales on my own. So he basically paired me with this neighbor of his to go find him an investment property.
Okay.
So I looked for a few weeks with him, and then about a week later, I was always in the office before the senior guy.
Okay.
But that day, I got there at 8:15, not 7:45. And what do you know? The neighbor is sitting in my guy's office. And he's like, Nicole, I'd like to introduce you to my new partner. He made this guy his partner.
In the brokerage business.
In the brokerage business. And he's
Okay.
like, you can help train him. And I'm like, I've seen this movie before. Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Huh? So, I mean, and I don't know, I can't tell you what their split arrangement, but I'm sure it wasn't 90-10.
Well, that's for sure. Weren't you selling this guy a property? Trying to sell this guy a property?
That's what I'm saying. Right. No warning.
Right.
I just walk in one day and bam, he's my partner.
Okay.
So they said, how do you feel about this? And again, I can't believe, when I look back, I can't believe I said it. I go, yeah, this smells like the old boys club. That's what I think.
Good for you.
And I walk into my manager's office, and my manager, rest in peace, was Miles Helm. He was a huge part of my, getting into the next part of my career. He said, why don't you start working the Hollywood market? Why don't you work the entertainment world?
And away from the other guy.
Oh, that's over. I mean, he knows that.
Sure.
He's just like, why don't you do this on your own? So I'd been in the business 9 months.
Yeah.
He said, why don't you you live in Hollywood, you hang out in Hollywood, you know these people from your days and the tech kind of worlds. Why don't you start working that market?
Okay.
And that was it. The rest is history. I basically just started block by block talking.
That's great. So then you do that. Rest is history, right? What takes you from down to the big shops?
That's a great question. Yeah. So when I got into the business and didn't know anybody, I joined something I had picked up from my scrappy tech planet sales days is I would go to chambers of commerce meetings to network and meet other business owners. So I had, in the beginning of my career, I started going to every chamber of commerce you could imagine. The Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, El Segundo Chamber of Commerce, Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I lived in Hollywood and could walk to the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And now that I'm thrust into the business by myself, I really kind of connected with that and got really involved.
And when you were doing that, while you were doing that, I should say, were you still finding, because I hear it even today sometimes, that all boys club kind of thing, even in your networking, your chambers of commerce meetings, things like that, was there reception to the fact that you were female doing what has always been known really as an all boys club?
Definitely, and an appreciation that I was young and coming into it with a fresh mentality. It did require mentors and allies that recognized that. But that is being active and showing up is what got me in the door. And then they're like, "Oh, Nicole, you should lead the young, the young professionals group."
Right.
And you should, eventually I show up to every single Hollywood Economic Development Committee meeting. And that's where what I liked about the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce is there were real like owners. It wasn't just owners of flower shops and
Right.
insurance brokers. It was owners of major, developments and portfolios
Right.
in Hollywood and the entertainment studios. So I was getting in front of some real players. And one of my very first listings was this property in Hollywood that was on an off street. This ownership took a chance on me. And I envisioned for that property that this property should be a homeless shelter. I mean, that's kind of the zoning it had. And
Right.
it was an office building on this street that was blighted. I said, we need this in Hollywood. So I started cold calling the homeless shelter groups and homeless services. Didn't get anywhere. I show up at the Hollywood Economic Development Committee meeting, sit next to this woman. She says, "I'm helping PATH, people assisting the homeless, find an emergency shelter." And I'm like, "I got your building." So I was actually.
No, it's great. It's great. I mean, the people in our industry, rave about networking because that's what happens. That's what happens. It's you probably, I don't know if you ever did the ICSC, the retail stuff. So you know what it is. They tell you, there's the booths and there's this. The shit happens when you're walking down the hall and you're just next to that person or you're waiting in line for a taxi. That's
100%.
That's where you make the deals.
And here was the opportunity. My
Right.
competitors, the guys, the old boys club, they thought that stuff was a waste of time.
Of course.
They would literally say, "This is a waste of time. I don't know why you do this." Also, Hollywood was not in a great place. My fellow brokers go Holly weird. And I'm like, you know what? There's only one brokerage that has market share right now, and it's a small firm. So I saw myself as in a place to compete with them. And I would get nasty calls from some of them. They would call me and say, "What are you doing, little girl? Why are you calling my clients?" I said, "This is a free market economy. This is where the opportunity is. These people can choose their service providers." But you asked how I got to the next level. So here's the thing. Networking in Hollywood, having access, I knew all the players.
Good.
I would get these opportunities for a first look before something would hit the market. But yet, and there was an opportunity. I was probably 6-7 years in the business, and it was a $50 million sale opportunity.
Right.
And I had been networking with the property owner at the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. But he's like, "But I'm going to hire CBRE. I'm going to hire this broker who he wouldn't hire me." And the list goes on, the office building that I wanted to lease, they were only going to work with the institutional players. So I knew that. And I knew there was a limitation, wasn't actively looking. And then in 2009, when the market was just at the bottom of the barrel recession, there was what I will call one of the guys who was the power brokers, Carl Molstein, had set up because he was saying, "Gosh, there's got to be something that the city can do to help spur business in this downturn."
Sure.
So he set up a meeting with the deputy mayor of the city of Los Angeles, and he basically curated a group of power brokers, everybody big in the business. It happened that one of the folks on the mayor's business development team was a guy who used to be a junior at Dom. And he saw there's no women in this room and there's nobody from Dom. So I have full respect for him for wanting to include Dom and women. So he got me invited kind of through a back door.
Nice.
So that's how I met Carl Molstein. And I show up to the meeting. I make a couple of salient points about the city isn't promoting the tax incentives that they just got and this and that. And, I introduced myself to him at the end of the meeting. And then I got an email. We didn't even text back then. I got an email the next day. The only word in the email is "call" in the subject line. And it's Carl. So of course I'm like, well, I'm going to call him. So I call him and he says, you probably don't know me. And I'm like, and I have no chill. So I'm like, I know you. You're like you're famous. I read about
Right.
you in the newspapers. But he said we should meet. And so when we met, what I was so taken by was the generosity of information and connectivity.
Yeah.
He basically said, again, using an old term, I have a very powerful Rolodex. I want to, share it. The idea is he flies at 30,000 feet, and I was a street broker.
Yep.
And there's all this business in between, especially in the leasing side.
Sure.
And especially in Hollywood and West Hollywood, which is the market I was working in. So that's kind of where that happened. So he was a Cushman and Wakefield. He recruited me to Cushman and Wakefield, and we started working not as full partners, but as strategic partners.
Okay.
And that worked for me. And we were at Cushman, then moved to JLL, and
With
then
him,
Carl
you
kind
guys
of.
did it together. You made those moves together.
I sort of, he had an embedded team, and then I kind of moved alongside.
Sure.
And then Carl, we'll call it quasi-retired
Okay.
in 2023.
Right.
And then after that, I sort of said, and I have my own book of business that I've built over the
Sure.
years as well. But I made a decision that to move to CBRE and kind of take a new, fresh approach to things.
Well, it's great. We're going to go forward from there, but I want to take a half step back because you alluded to something earlier in what you were saying. But I think that you're the case study for the cliche of 90% of life is just showing up because you were there. You were there. It was those Chamber of Commerce meetings. It was sitting around and being with people, and clearly, it touched a nerve with people in a very good way, and it became quite beneficial for you to go from there. And I think it's great. It's a great part of the story, and I think it's fabulous. So you do your Cushman Wakefield, JLL. You're a Hollywood star. Right, you're a Hollywood star now. I get a kick, and this is my own thing. At the closing line of Pretty Woman is the guy walking down the street, and he goes, "Welcome to Hollywood. What's your name?" And I don't know why that just always sticks in my brain. So you're a Hollywood rock star as far as the business goes. You're doing some non-traditional things. I think that there is a fun story for you. Your hands in Shirley Temple's handprints on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you fast forward to, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the story why you're on the Hollywood Walk of Fame with Molly Shannon. So I think you must see that in your own story how all of this clicks together. So take me there. What are you doing there?
Absolutely. Well, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, in addition to being a place that was a terrific networking vehicle for me, happens to own the IP of the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the physical Hollywood sign. These are very powerful properties, right? And brands.
Who did you say owned them?
The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce.
Oh,
the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce owns the Hollywood Walk of Fame, invented the Hollywood Walk of Fame
sure.
as a promotion or to get something for tourists so tourists could connect with their favorite stars.
Yep.
Somebody in like the late 50s said, I see these tourists coming to Hollywood. They're coming to Hollywood Boulevard. They're looking around and they're not seeing the favorites, their celebrities. Why don't we create that experience for them in the sidewalk? So brilliant. Right. That's how the Hollywood Walk of Fame was born, and the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, started it, still owns it, and runs the ceremonies.
Okay.
And they also own the rights to the iconic Hollywood sign.
Nice.
So that's just part of the picture. Now, when I joined the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, that wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
And in fact, for years, it was sort of disconnected from what we were doing on the ground in terms of having our meetings and lunches and galas, and it just didn't feel like there was connectivity to it. I ended up, as I showed up, I was asked to join the board of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And then as I show up on the board, I was asked to join the executive committee, and I served every role. I was vice chair 3 times. I was the treasurer. I was the secretary. And then guess what's next? Being chair.
Okay.
So the year I become chair, we had typically the CEO. So the chair is a volunteer leadership position. The CEO is a paid position.
Right.
The CEO of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce was understood to be the MC of the Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremonies.
Okay.
The chair was, up until that time, the only board member who was invited to the ceremonies. So I was, and this was, by the way, when Ivy was chair, it was 2021 to 2022. We were just coming out of COVID.
Okay.
So these ceremonies that I would be part of were, it was like the first ceremony out of COVID I was there at. By the second ceremony that I was supposed to attend, we had a leadership transition at the Chamber of Commerce. I'll just keep it at that. So,
Okay.
so we did not have a MC. And the producer of the Walk of Fame was sort of looking at me like, what are we going to do?
Right.
And I said, well, I'm not afraid to get up on a mic. I can do it. And that's what we.
I would have never known that. By the way, you're very shy in this interview, so I would have never known that about you.
Public speaking. I mean, I never had a problem with it. I would get
Okay.
up on a mic in high school in front of an auditorium of like 1,500 people. I've never had a problem with public speaking. So I said, I'll do it. And so she goes, okay. So I end up doing my first ceremony. It was Terry Crews. And I introduced Howie Mandel.
Yep.
And it was fun. I had a blast. I felt very at ease up there.
Good.
And that was the first ceremony that I emceed, and then it ended up taking off from there. I did Missy Elliott, I did Daniel Craig, James Bond and Salma Hayek.
It's fun. It's fun. People get a kick out of it, and you could use, I'm sure there are opportunities to use it in your personal marketing. It's got to be great. It's got to be great.
Absolutely. It's so fun it's so funny, 15 years ago when I would see how it would work when you would become chair and I knew you would go, I would think, gosh, I've got so many calls to make. How would I have 2 hours to block out in the middle of my day to go to the
Right.
Walk of Fame? That was my early on mentality. And then of course I see how valuable it is.
Sure.
Number one, to experience it, to be able to also get more involved with the Hollywood brand, because Hollywood is a place.
Yeah.
It is a business. It is a state of mind. It is something that internationally is, it's world famous, right? So that was good too.
No, I think it's tremendous, and clearly you've utilized all these connections to do a variety of things. I think to bring us almost up to speed. I think you made the Hollywood Reporter. So you really are a rock star. Tell us about that particular. Tell me about the Boxcar Studios deal that got you into the Hollywood Reporter.
So Boxcar Studios is a deal that I've been working on for years. So I want to say I was hired to do the leasing by a prior owner in 2015, 2016, while Playboy was still the master tenant of that property. And that property was in an area that no one really talked about. It's called Atwater Village, but it really wasn't a market up to that time.
Right.
I had done all the leasing that we talked about in sales in Hollywood. I said, I'm kind of leasing myself out of business. I need to branch out. So I started working what I call the LA River Corridor in the East Side, and saw that as a strategic play. So this was a property that used to be a Capitol Records vault where they literally stored records. It had been just a traditional industrial facility, and Playboy saw something in it and then converted it to studios. Playboy Radio was there. I have some funny stories about walking through while Playboy was still there and walking into the control room. I was certainly blushing.
This is a PG show.
This is a PG. I won't describe what I saw on the screen, but as a young woman, younger at least, walking through with a bunch of guys, I was like, oh my God.
All right.
But anyway, we end up, I end up recognizing that particular ownership was an out-of-town based owner. didn't, I think, I realized this property is an outlier. It's been heavily invested in as a studio property, but I think that there aren't that many players in that space, and they're probably gonna have to invest a considerable amount of money to get a new tenant.
Sure.
So in recognizing that, I really pitched them on selling the property. I said, you guys should sell this property. I think it's a good time. The
Right.
studio market is starting to take off because in 2017, 2018, that world, the studio world, was still an outlier in terms of an asset type. But I was able to convince Gaw Capital to buy it. And the way that deal came about was the seller was off and on wanting to sell.
Okay.
But no joke, about November 10th, I think of 2017, they called me and said, okay, we'll sell it,
Right.
but you got to get it closed by the end of the year.
Okay.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That's our favorite, right? That's our favorite thing. Dare us to get it done, right?
And so you have to be very strategic in who you call. Can't
Sure.
screw around. Got to get to that number that's going to appeal to somebody that they're going to get through their DD really quick.
Right.
And they did it. And we closed on December 30th.
Good for you. Good for you.
And so what was kind of magical was the year after that, again, we have a vacant studio property. There's 3 sound stages. There's some really heavily built out post-production space. I send out an e-blast that says something like, there was a hot restaurant down the street that I don't think people realized was right near the property. And Salazar's the name of it. And we said, we'll take you to lunch and a drink if you come show the property.
Okay.
We don't even, just come and, we'll get you, we'll take you out. And it worked. There was a broker who represented a tenant who I will say is a major entertainment company that we can't speak the name of, but they leased it. They leased it on a long-term basis. And they're going to be moving out, and now we are repositioning it again. So this time, instead of doing it by myself, which is basically what I did in 2017, I brought in a capital markets team and our national industrial practice. Right. Because the studio and stage world was just on the up and up in 2017, 2018. It skyrocketed in early COVID. And then with a couple of things that's happened since then, it's the dynamics have changed. Yeah. And so that's not the hottest asset type at the moment.
Sure.
So we need to be flexible. We're seeing.
You have to know what you know, and you have to know what you don't know, right? So you got to have the right people as part of this. No, I think it's amazing. I think that it's a fun story. It's exciting, and clearly the Hollywood Reporter and all that stuff. I'll go back to calling you a Hollywood star again. There's so much going on in your world. World Cup. We're taping this now. World Cup's going to be finishing up shortly. You have Olympics clearly in 28, right? You have the Super Bowl coming. I can't imagine that you have a minute to rest. I think all of this brings tremendous activity your way.
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's still a lot of room in the upcoming world events, and okay. I don't know if everybody is the ownership side, the brokerage side has really tapped into it yet, because I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, Super Bowl's here on a weekend and it's done, and then the Olympics are here and right. It's a few weeks. But the truth is, I've already started doing deals where there's major brands, apparel brands especially, right. that have come to, like Puma did a deal in Hollywood. One of the reasons they did that is to position themselves for a VIP kind of content studio and showroom at the Olympics. They want to be well positioned ahead of the Olympics. And so they're doing longer term leases. And I did another deal with a well-known athletic apparel brand as well in Hollywood, and that's a trend. That's a trend we're seeing.
Well, listening to you and speaking with you here, I feel like you'll be sitting in on IOC meetings, and you'll pick up some more. You'll pick up some more business. It's very exciting. I think that your story is great. I'm grateful to you for your time and spending it with me, and just talking about all this stuff. And I hope that you'll allow for us to call you, in 6 months or sooner, or maybe even a little further, quite frankly, to get more updated Olympic stories, because I think there's going to be a lot coming out of that, not just about the Olympics, but your successes due to the Olympics. So again, Nicole, I really, really appreciate your time. It was a great chat, and I look forward to doing it again sometime real soon.
I love that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.